When you're working with seniors, specifically dealing with the muscle mass issues, in building muscle mass, are there any specific muscle areas that you prioritize and how do you select those?
Perfect. That's a great question. The thighs, the quadriceps or quads, all the same muscle group, is the most important. It's called the quads because there's four main muscles there in your thigh. It's the biggest muscle group in the body. Those four make up the biggest group. Squats are considered the best overall exercise. If you're only going to do one exercise, do squats. The thighs are so important. The muscles straighten the knee and straighten the leg from a bent position. So you need to have that thigh strength to stand up from a chair or from the toilet because your legs are, they're bent when you're sitting down. You need to be able to straighten those legs. It's also the main muscle for going up and down stairs, for walking, for running and jumping. So there's a reason the thighs are the biggest muscle group. So doing stuff for your quads, even if it's, knee extensions, you're sitting down, you just pick your foot up off the floor a few inches and then straighten the leg so that you're bending the knee down and then you're straightening the knee up and contracting the thigh by doing it. So depending on how strong people are, that's just where we start. And a lot of people have knee pain. Sometimes the knee pain is related to weak quads, but it also means that it's painful for them to do some of these exercises at the beginning. So we need to be careful just doing the leg straightening exercises or thigh contractions without any weights or not even by standing up and putting their body weight on it is the best way to start until it starts getting stronger. Sometimes then I'll put ankle weights on them to straighten the leg so it starts adding resistance. Of course, at the gym, there's many machines to work the thighs as well. The number two here to move on, the glutes, the big butt muscles. Now, there's a couple of smaller glutes. So there's the glute maximus, gluteus maximus, gluteus minimus, gluteus medius, but the glute max is the one that extends the leg behind you. So when you're walking and you're pushing off and you're pulling that leg behind you, the glute is like number two, and the glute max is the biggest single muscle in your body. And so it's very important too. The thighs and the glutes are like, that's what are used for locomotion, walking, like I say, jumping, climbing upstairs, standing, all of that. So we really work those as well. And then maybe third, I would say, is the core muscles, especially the abs, but there's also muscles on the sides and in your back, low back, and they're there to protect your lumbar spine from injury. So having a strong core helps protect the low back. So people that even have back pain doing core exercises gently to work around the back pain, but the ways to strengthen the core without aggravating the back can relieve the back pain and protect the spine. So those are really the main ones. The upper body, if you have osteoporosis, you still want to work the upper body and things. But when people come to me, especially if they have a balance issue, getting their legs strong is going to be the best, use of our time and effort because we want to reduce their hazard of their risk of falling.
Yep.
So that comes first with getting the leg strong and stable. And then we can start working on other body parts as well once they're not a fall risk anymore.
I do have some questions around the balance and the fall prevention, but before that, just to have my thoughts clear on this particular aspect, you mentioned about squats to be done for getting that strength in your thighs. But what about for those seniors who are suffering from arthritis or obesity? How do they go with it?
Arthritis, movement, believe it or not, because people are like, oh, it hurts to move, if they have it in their hands or their hips, knees, arthritis, elbows, wrists. Really, movement is the best. The physical therapists, the physios say motion is lotion. It's lotion for the joints. It gets the fluid, the synovial fluid in the joints flowing. So even though people think, oh, it hurts to move, and it's counterintuitive, actually moving will help arthritis. Now, arthritis is inflammation in the joints, in the linings of the joints and things. Anything that ends in itis is an inflammation. So when it ends in itis, colitis, Vasculitis, anything like that means inflammation. So arthritis is inflammation. So movement, you want to be gentle and start building into it slow, even if you're just doing, I'm just using fingers because I can show them here on the camera, but just, gentle moving and things like that will actually improve over time. Just slow and steady a couple of times a day, working the joints that are sore, not working them too hard. And then as you go, they'll be better. Now, you mentioned obesity. Um, it's about 80% diet and 20% exercise. So
Okay.
it's really going to be your diet, as they tell us, and when you get your certified as a personal trainer, you can't out exercise a bad diet. The
Mhm.
bad diet is going to win. No matter how much time you spend in the gym, you can't work off the calories that you can eat during the day. If you go home and have beer and cheesecake and cookies and all of that, you can't work long enough in the gym to work that off. So it needs to be diet, but you want to do exercise because what happens with a lot of people that go on a diet, calorie restriction, start losing weight, you don't only just lose the body fat, you lose muscle as well. The body doesn't Mostly, maybe it'll be body fat, but some of it is muscle. So you need to do strength training to make sure what you're losing is the body fat and not the muscle. Because a lot of people get really weak then when they lose a lot of weight, because weight can be muscle or body fat. So it's important. So even though the diet needs to prioritize, you really need to do the diet as well. And then as you get stronger and build up muscles, that actually revs up your metabolism and burns more fat as well, because bigger muscles are metabolically active and your body has to work hard to get nutrients to those muscles and carry waste away from the muscles, get oxygen to those muscles. So that's why your metabolism revs up. So you really need to do both, but the emphasis has to be on the diet.
I hope this helps our listeners. And moving on to the next question, when you mentioned about the balance and the fall prevention, the very first thing I would like to understand on this aspect is what are some of the key indicators of warning signs that might suggest that a senior is at risk of falls or is having poor mobility or balance?
Some standard assessments to do when someone first comes to me. I will see how long they can do a heel to toe stand. So they just stand with it's like a heel to toe walk, but all you do is just stand there
Mhm.
and see if they can do that. If they have trouble doing that, it's usually a good indication that their balance isn't very good. The frailty is a real big thing. If somebody has really skinny arms and legs, you know that they don't have probably much strength. If even walking, if they have trouble walking, trouble picking up their feet and putting them in front of some people, they call it the slipper shuffle. Older ladies just kind of shuffle their feet along the floor. They don't actually pick the feet up and walk. That's a big indication. It's kind of a laziness where they don't, it's too much effort to pick the feet up and put them down in front. So they just kind of shuffle along on the floor because they don't have to lift the leg up you
Mhm.
know these are all things, of course, if someone needs a walker or a cane or at least help standing up, they have to grab onto a bar or the armrests of the chair and push themselves up. Those are all indications that they're at big risk for a fall. Arthritis, stiffness in the joints, especially the ankles and hips, that's also a big fall hazard. Stiff ankles is like one of the biggest reasons people fall. So you talked about the arthritis and the flexibility. The ankle kind of is the shock absorber between the ground and the leg, and it has to be able to, if you step on something that isn't quite level and things, it needs to be able to compensate. But if they're too stiff, you're just going to fall over. It needs to be able to be fluid. So stiff ankles and then hips, number two, are a big thing. And then, of course, dizziness, which can be just people have issues, especially if they sit down and they stand up quickly and the blood doesn't catch up to them, to their head, and they have dizziness. Or maybe their medication makes them dizzy. Maybe if they drink alcohol, it makes them dizzy. Poor eyesight, poor hearing, some cognitive decline issues, all can affect your balance and make you fall risk as well.
Do you have some statistics with you that can help us understand the seriousness and the regular occurrence of falls or imbalance issues with seniors?
So in the United States, over 32,000 seniors die from falls every year. Every year, 32,000. That's about 100 a day. They often will hit their head. We had a close family friend who fell. He was in his mid 70s, had kind of a mobility issue, was on a slanted sidewalk and fell, hit his head, never regained consciousness, and died. As I told you about the broken hips, so there's 800,000 broken hips a year, and there's like a third of people die within the first 3 months. That's a crazy statistic that I saw. Falls, accidental falls by senior, the number one cause of accidental deaths among seniors, number one reason for emergency room visits for seniors in the United States every year. And there's even a study was done in the Seattle, Washington area. One in every six calls, emergency calls to the fire department were for falls. They, not for putting out fires, but to pick up people that had fallen in their home or somewhere. So it's, and a broken hip, as I mentioned, can put you in a nursing home. Those are extremely expensive, five to $10,000 or more per month in US dollars. And that can drain your life savings in just a year or two. You have to sell your house. So, besides the pain and losing your independence, there's a huge financial cost as well.
Does flexibility has a role to play in maintaining balance and our mobility?
As I mentioned, like the ankle flexibility is a big part of it, but other flexibility as well, because we all kind of maybe trip or stumble on something, maybe the rug, the edge of a rug or something in our house. But the key, the secret is to not actually fall and hit the ground. Maybe we stumble a little bit or stagger, but can we catch our balance, right ourselves, and stay on our feet? And flexibility has a huge role in that, where if you start to feel yourself going down, being able to twist or turn or just counteract and move your body so you don't actually. The trouble is when we hit the ground, it's not stumbling, it's like falling out of a building. Everything's fine until you hit the ground,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as they say. So far, so good. So staying on our feet, even if we stumble, being able to recover from a stumble, and flexibility has a huge role in that, being able to reach out and maybe grab the counter or grab something that will help you keep your balance, and being able to reach and do a twisting motion that you wouldn't normally do, just because that's what it takes to keep you from falling. You may need to reach over and grab while you're going to one side and reach out. So flexibility in the shoulders, the hips, the knees, the ankles, all really important in that. And then, of course, if you're more flexible, if you do hit the ground, you're less likely to be injured as well, because the muscles and things are more able to absorb the shock.
Let's say, unfortunately, we have some cases coming in where the fall has happened, and at the elder, senior age, a lot of people do end up losing their confidence. So, how do you deal with the, psychological aspect of fall prevention, bringing in that confidence back and reducing the fear?
That's a very good question as well. And, studies have shown that millions of people in the US, and I'm sure around the world, millions more of seniors are afraid to go out and do things like even go shopping, go to visit their families, go visit their friends, because they're afraid of falling. So they stay in. Now that causes the psychological problems of loneliness, isolation, which will cause depression. But the fear of falling, so they don't go out, means their activity level is even reduced further. So it kind of fuels a downward spiral where, I'm afraid to go out because I might fall. Well, that just makes them weaker and weaker. So they become even a more fall risk. So some people, as soon as 2 sessions working together, they have started to see an improvement in their balance. And
Mm,
that gives them confidence. Now, we don't want to become overconfident and do things that we're not ready for, or that's not safe for them to do yet, but the balance can be improved. And a lot of times in the early stages, it's the neural activation or nervous system activation, where the movement is a three-part process, three-part system. The brain decides, oh, I want to reach up and grab this cup here. The nervous system and the nerves carry the signal to the muscles, and then the appropriate muscles do what they need to do. Your arm comes up, your arm goes forward, your fingers clasp around the glass and bring it back. So a lot of times the weak link in that chain is the nervous system, where you know what you want to do. The muscles would be able to respond, but the nerves don't do a good job of telling the muscles what to do. So our movements are clumsy and not very, kind of shaky. So what we want to do is some of this repetitive motion and this work we do gets the muscles, so the nerves and the muscles talking together, the neuromuscular system. So some of that we're activating pretty quickly, because that's what's degraded. The nerves, the cells die off as we get older, just like they do in all parts of the body. So we need to tune those up and work those as well. When people all of a sudden so that can help them get over those clumsy movements, and the feet now are moving much better. They pick them up, they put them down like they're supposed to. They see an improvement right away,
mhm.
and that builds the confidence. And then maybe they are willing to go out and do their own grocery shopping, or go up and down stairs, or visit their friends. And then that fuels the upswing of, okay, I'm feeling better, I can move better, I want to do more. So being afraid to do things is kind of, it starts a downward spiral. When you start to see improvement and you're like, wow, I haven't been able to do that for years, all of a sudden they want to do more and more. So it starts
Yeah,
an upward climb.
yeah.
So trying to get to folks and work with them and get them on that upward path is a huge part in overcoming that fear.